The Galactic Council's conference chamber thrummed with polite, regulated energy when Elsa Chen stepped through the airlock. Her boots, plain Earth military issue, clicked across the crystalline floor, and every sound seemed to amplify in the glinting hall. 47 species had come to the council in full regalia and adaptive suits. Their alien gestures and chemical greetings rippled across the room like a tide. They expected ceremony, a flurry of emissaries, and the ritual softness of diplomacy. Instead, a single human woman stood at the podium and let silence speak first. 3 measured steps behind her, Leo Martinez moved like a shadow. He carried one silver case, compact, heavy with implication, and his face held the quiet, unblinking focus of someone who had seen too many battlefields. Murmurs rose as delegation heads adjusted their translators, trying to parse why Earth had sent only 2 figures when usually a full diplomatic escort arrived. The Concord's ambassador Kilroth, scales gleaming in the chamber light, wheezed through his vocalizer and asked the expected question about Chancellor Morrison and the missing delegation. Elsa did not perform the formalities. She stood without bowing, without the tiny courtesy gestures every species had come to expect. Her silence filled the room like an accusation. When she finally spoke, it was flat, blunt. Chancellor Morrison is dead. 400,000 colonists on New Brisbane are dead. The Kryn Collective had glassed the colony from orbit. The reaction was immediate and chaotic. Translated shrieks, chemical clicks, a chorus of outrage. Zector, the towering insectoid Kryn representative, remained still, his mandibles barely moved. They were warned. He clicked to his translator, the Kryn version of a shrug, insisting their actions fit Concord law. But the room had already shifted. Leo opened the silver case and exposed what Earth had recovered from the ash: medical records, registrations, DNA fragments. Proof the colony had not been abandoned willingly, that evacuation had been impossible for many. This opening scene sets the tone. The ritual structure of the council is stripped away. Diplomacy and procedure are shown as thin veneers over a raw, human grief. Elsa's steady presence, Leo's silent weight, and the revealed evidence plant the first seeds of rupture. A facade of civilization is about to be tested by a painful, uncompromising truth. Once the facts hung in the room, polite justifications began to surface. Velnari and other delegates murmured about border disputes, evacuation warnings, and Concord rules of engagement. The council's language was precise and comfortable with sacrifice, 3 cycles of warning, protocol complied with, lawful conduct. The Velnari argument tried to fold the atrocity into precedent, a tragic but legally defensible act within galactic norms. The crystalline Velnari delegate shone with indignation and rationales about disputed territory. Procedural logic tried to drown the human faces behind statistics. Elsa's response dismantled that logic piece by piece. She counted the hours and the humanity with the kind of detail that turned policy into shame. 72 hours, she said calmly, the flimsy window given to families to abandon homes built over 3 generations. She painted evacuation scenes that protocols could not sanitize. Ships unable to handle capacity, parents frantically loading children, hospitals jammed with the elderly and infants, and then the cold command to open fire anyway. Ambassador Kilroth groped for diplomatic insulation, insisting Earth had been a model member of the Concord, that New Brisbane was an outlier. But Leo's quiet addition, humanity's proverb about speaking softly while carrying a big stick, made the case resonate deeper. For 23 years, humans had tried to be the better species. Arbitration, mediation, paperwork, patience. Each attempt at composure fed a slow, building resentment that politics could not erase. Elsa's reminders were not merely rhetorical. She pulled no punches when she recalled the captivity of human colonists on frontier worlds 3 years prior, the failed mediations that had followed, and the hollow comfort of filed protests. The message was simple and terrible. Diplomacy had a cost measured in human lives, and the Concord's rules had been weaponized to justify calculable losses. As the room watched, the Velnari delegate's crystal body flashed with refracted light. Anger and discomfort made visible. The council's systems of law and etiquette began to look like instruments of denial. The core grievance that emerges in this section is the moral bankruptcy of cold protocol, when it's used to rationalize mass slaughter. From this tension springs the pivotal question. If civilized rules protect the powerful and punish the weak, what recourse remains for those whom the rules betray? The rhetoric had escalated to moral indictment. Now Earth escalated to action. Elsa produced a small holographic projector that bloomed into a rotating blue-green image of Kryn Prime, home to 14 billion, and then shifted to show something far more consequential. The Terran defense fleet leaving orbital yards, warships assembling in formation, weapon signatures plotting across holographic grids. The visualization was the opposite of rhetoric. It was a technical, incontrovertible demonstration that Earth had options beyond petitions and protests. The chamber's atmosphere transformed into stunned, brittle silence. No one expected a display of force paired with a diplomatic address. The Terran message was unmistakable and procedural in its own way. Earth was withdrawing from the Concord. Leo's voice sliced through the silence as he declared the immediate cancellation of all treaties, trade agreements, and diplomatic ties. The legal veneer that the Concord had depended on was being stripped away in a single administrative motion. Arguments erupted, frantic cries about trade routes, neutral zones, the collapse of interstellar commerce. Delegates pleaded that the Concord was the backbone of interspecies survival, that small human nations could not possibly survive alone. Elsa's reply was cold and practiced. Humanity survives. The rhetoric of survival, ice ages, plagues, nuclear standoffs, was compressed into a single, unyielding sentence. We will survive again. Then came the ultimatum. The hologram rewound to fleet vectors, this time annotated with targeting coordinates and weapon signatures, tangible, programmed threats. Humanity gave the Concord 30 days to remove any human populations under their control. After 30 days, any remaining humans would be considered hostages, and Earth declared it would not negotiate with hostage takers. The tone was transactional but lethal. Evacuate your human wards or face consequences. The Velnari denounced this as a declaration of war. Elsa corrected them. It was a promise. As she turned toward the airlock, the calm certainty in her posture signaled that Earth was done pretending the Concord's safety net would always hold. The Terran fleet's recall was not mere posturing. It was a visible, concrete transfer of agency back to humanity. The era of deference and legalistic restraint was over. An ultimatum now stood between the Concord and a species that remembered every name. What follows the ultimatum is less an ending than a hinge. The chamber, momentarily roaring with alien outrage, slowly folded into stunned consideration. Delegates who had practiced centuries of protocol sensed that something fundamental had shifted. Elsa's final words were spare but seismic. Humanity had tried civilization and diplomacy. Now they would stop pretending those were their only options. Her promise, not a reckless declaration of violence, but a studied, ancestral threat, invoked a brutal lineage. She spoke of humans' deep memory, the way their species kept names and faces in ledger-like focus, and how that memory had been honed by 10,000 years of survival. The image she painted was less of armies than of a culture capable of total war. Not just tactical battles, but the systemic, comprehensive application of a species' full capacity for organized violence and endurance. It was a phrase meant to be understood across cultures. We do not forget, and when provoked, our response is total. Leo's subtle gestures closed the scene. The silver case snapped shut with the quiet finality of a verdict. The Terran fleet's coordinates hovered in the memory of delegates like a threat that could be read on any tactical display. As the two humans moved toward the airlock, Elsa's promise hung in the air, a leash removed, a former restraint cast aside. The Concord had taught humans their rules. Now Earth offered to teach the Concord a different manual, one written over millennia in human history books and scars. When the airlock sealed and the chamber doors were closed, 47 species sat in silence, confronted by the reality that a species they had underestimated was no longer willing to be constrained by their rules. The story's last image is of a council that finally understands the cost of underestimating people who remember names and feel grief as a binding obligation. With the leash off, the balance of power has shifted from legalistic restraint to a rawer, more dangerous logic, and the galaxy will have to reckon with the consequences.